lanes are put in and when. And the issue is driven by parking. So at the west end of the corridor, which essentially is from Grand Street down to Liberty Street, it's possible to implement a bike lane of one sort or another without eliminating any parking. We've eliminated 13 parking spaces at various places to accommodate buses and loading and the other facilities that would generally go in a thriving downtown community. I think there are over 100 parking spaces on that section of Broadway. So we believe that losing a small number of parking spaces in that area for the installation of bike lanes would not be a significant impact. Phase 2 of the bike lane connection, connecting the 3 contemplated trails, would be to extend the bike lanes from Grand Street down Broadway to Chester Street. But that won't go ahead until the city has re-evaluated parking and determined that it won't have a significant adverse impact. So I hope that more clearly states what the phasing of the bike lanes is and how the underlying project is a corridor-wide project to improve the other facilities on the corridor.
Just as a point, the school district at this point has the high school renovation projects. Sorry. Yeah, okay, thank you.
I mean, in terms of years, the high school renovation, I mean, right now they talk about 2020, 2021 to be finished with all the phases.
You told us 2017.
Wow. Okay, I was, you know, they're doing it in stages as well.
That would be the stage that relocates the entrance.
The first one is, yes.
No, 2017.
Right. And at that point, that's when you think you could possibly take on phase 2.
Well, that's when you eliminate the issue about loading and unloading of students. You know, which is watch
God bless them,
it's
we're
scary.
gonna fix that one, yeah, okay. Thanks.
Over here.
Hi guys, my name is Nick Moretzis. Isn't that just for buses?
That's not what he said.
I just want everybody to see outside tonight. Did you notice that that side of the street was full of parked cars?
Yeah.
People are still going to park there for the high school or other things. So from Rite Aid to down here, you can't take away any parking. Thank you for trying to give me back 5 spots across the street, Dennis. But you still shouldn't take away parking across the street. Now Sammy's is on my block. Sammy's, the deli, hair salon, you know, the high school. All right, you guys are trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. And I know you guys work really hard, but it doesn't fit. Nobody wants their parking to be in the middle of the street, okay? Look, you see these two over here, March and Freddie? They can barely walk, all right? You want them to walk another 13 feet. All right, there's a lot of people like that. There's a lot of people that would help come in with canes and everything else. All right? Do pave the shared road sign in the middle of the road. That's all you got to do. And put up signs to share the road. Everything else is great. But you guys are going too far.
I had a more, this is Jennifer Schwartz-Berkey. I had a question about parking on the southern side of phase 1. And in looking at how much you're losing, have you, I wasn't sure because I couldn't really see the design up close to any extent, to understand whether the curb cuts will be reduced in front of Perry's, in front of Sunoco, in front of King's Inn, in a number of places where there's no access management right now, and so there's very limited parking on the south side on a number of blocks where you could make up the parking. Have you included that in the new count?
That typically is a detail of construction design plans where you have to make a determination for the individual properties what size of driveway they need. For example, if a building primarily has automobile traffic, its driveway doesn't need to be as wide as a gas station that has tractor trailers delivering gas. So those details will be reviewed in the design phase, and there may be an opportunity to pick up a space or two.
I understand. I just think that given that the Ulster County Planning Board and I hope that the Kingston Planning Board are looking at issues every time there's a new site plan proposed for narrowing or reducing the problems of too many curb cuts along the road there, where it's really not safe, where it could be obviously put to the side. This would reduce some of the panic that the public feels when they hear that you might be taking away parking. If you could simply analyze where you might be putting more parking back with such recommendations.
Well, as with all applications that come before planning boards, there are a number of considerations. One of them, to the extent that it is feasible, is access consolidation, so that you have traffic coming in and out at one point rather than multiple points, so you reduce the number of conflict points. Another is that whatever development goes in is required to do a parking analysis and comply with the code to make sure that they provide sufficient off-street parking to accommodate their needs, so that they don't exacerbate parking in the area. So those are just two of the fundamental facets of it.
Right, and I think the point I'm making, I'm sorry, the point I'm making is simply that conceptually you're talking about potentially losing 13 spaces, so why not conceptually show how you could gain a certain number?
Well, we conservatively assume that the properties will continue to exist more or less in the way that they do, and that the businesses will come into the small individual properties. If there's an accumulation of properties and they're redeveloped as a unit, then you will have opportunities to consolidate access and to gain back parking. But the analysis that we have done, the evaluation that we have done, is based on a more conservative assumption that that's not going to happen, and that you're not going to get the spaces back. If you do get the spaces back, so much the better. It's half working.
James Scally, the questions, just two things I wanted to bring up in a different direction. One is with regards to maintenance, because you did go over maintenance a little bit. The first that caught my eye was there was a picture of one of the sidewalks that was pretty badly beaten up and looked like it needed to be replaced. Those sidewalks were installed 10 or 12 years ago. This has been in business here for 15, going on 16 years. The city's record of maintenance is abysmal at best. So when you look doing anything and building anything, you don't just say, well, we got the money, we build it, and then when it's over, everybody goes back to their own whatever. The thing is that, do we have the capacity to take care of it and maintain it the way it should be? I mean, right now we're looking at sidewalks that would have to be replaced that are 10 or 12 years old. So they were never maintained or put in right in the first place. So I would hope that in some way that would be taken into consideration when looking at anything that is going to be built or changed. That's number one. The other question I have, did you say something about it?
Well, before I forget my answer to number one, sorry, Gabe. The plan has a recommendation that the materials used be selected for their durability, because we recognize that's an issue. And kind of related to that, and the vision is to make Broadway vibrant. If you bring the businesses back to Broadway, the merchants are going to demand that the city fathers and mothers, or whether you're single or not a mother or whatever, the city elders or owners are going to... Leaders, thank you. They're going to demand that the sidewalks be maintained because their business is going to depend on the continued curb appeal.
Problem here. I'm sorry that you decided to say that, because the businesses have been demanding a lot of things in this city for a long time, and nobody has listened to anything they have to say. The uptown businesses didn't plan. They didn't want it refurbished. They wanted to take it down. Nobody listened to them. Now there may be a pending lawsuit regarding the refurbishment of that. Right now, there's a lot of businesses that have serious questions regarding this plan. And, I hope we're not being paid a lot of lip service with regards to what our interests are. But the thing is that generally, when it comes to grant money in this town, it's the money first, and people and the businesses be damned. That's the way it's been. My other statement is regards to liability. I just want to know, is there a difference between the liability of the city right now with regards to bicyclists and the liability after the bike lane is installed and given the city's certification as a safe venue for bicycles? Does their liability change? That's something I think needs to be clarified, and that's all I gotta say.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? All right, well, I want to thank everyone for coming out and,
Has any consideration given to the Kingston's main fire station happens to be 1 block along Broadway and the apparatus goes out up and down the Broadway? That has been?
Yes, it has been considered and discussed.
With who?
Well, the TAC discussed it, and we consulted with the fire department. Is that correct, Ray?
I don't know, I happen to be a president of the fire commission board, so I haven't heard anything. Thank you.
So I do have one other question. What about the roundabout? How's that going to impact Broadway as a building over at the end?
The roundabout should improve the overall operation of the corridor.
Traffic?
It will allow people to get out of the corridor more easily. So it should improve the traffic conditions on the corridor.
okay, thank you. Okay, one more.
Yeah, I just want to ask an overall question, which is, what is our vision, and I ask this of everybody, is our vision that Broadway is a thoroughfare that just gets people from one place to another, or is it a community? You know, I've lived here my whole life. I was born in Kingston Hospital, and neighborhoods in Down Street and Elmendorf and Brigham School when it was there, and on the other side on Henry Street were all vibrant neighborhoods when I was a kid. Those people that live there now are very poor, mostly rentals, and I think the question now is, and it's a serious question for the city to ask, are we trying to bring those back to being livable neighborhoods, or do we think it's more important that Broadway be a thoroughfare, be the way to get from downtown to uptown, to get from Poughkeepsie to the Thruway. There's a lot of really great things here. I'm all for it, and I'll put it right out there. But I think the question, and I think a lot of the opposition is about keeping this a highway. And I think we just have to be real clear, what is it we want? Do we want to make this livable for the people that live in this corridor? Or do we want to make it so that it's a very vibrant traffic highway? And I think you've answered a lot with the traffic. I don't think people are really hearing it or believing that you're going to increase traffic capacity by 30 or 40% based on what you're saying. But there's a whole piece that's not really being heard. I think everybody's talking about bike lanes, and you're talking about a lot of other things that really would add to the livability of this area. And how do you separate this opposition? Is the opposition just to the bike lane, and everybody's happy to put in trees and curb cuts and pedestrian walkways? And if that's the case, then let's narrow the conversation, and then let's look at it and say, okay, how bad is the bike lane and where is it bad? And let's try to make everybody make something work. I mean, what I've heard tonight is no opposition to anything else except for bike lane, and frankly, what I've heard about it is bike lane in phase 2. So if there's not major opposition, or if there's agreement on doing bike lane in phase 1, and there's agreement on the rest of phase 1, then let's collectively try to put that forth, and let's take phase 2 as a separate conversation, so we're not getting so muddled.
Fire trucks. Mark Brown's not for it. He doesn't want this thing. You guys say publicly
Where is he?
that all department heads
If he's
are
not
for
against
it. Publicly, you guys have said that all department heads are for it, and he thinks it's a problem. The 10-foot wide lanes. Is it 12-foot wide now? That's not the only problem. It's the width of the traffic lanes. Going down from 12 to 10. How wide is a truck? How wide is a tractor trailer truck? Or the fire truck?
Nick, you're talking
Hold on.
about, no, just
I'm
to
asking.
clarify, you're talking about phase 2 though, aren't you?
I'm talking for the whole thing, for the size of the lane.
Hold on.
They're
How
about-
wide is the truck?
They're about 9 feet wide.
9 feet 7 inches, I measured it, mirror to mirror. 10-foot wide lanes. You got 2 tractor trailers, you got cars parked on either side, there's no wiggle room. So why would you go from 12 feet to 10?
We're actually talking about that.
Well, I mean, that's one of the issues that will come up during the design phase. Yeah.
There's a lot of emergency vehicles on the street. Like 20 times, up and down, all day long.
In the back?
I just want to say that I appreciate what this gentleman said, is that we've been like focusing on what we're going to lose, not what we're going to gain. And I feel like we've got 30 empty stores, and I hate going out to the mall. I hate going to the box stores. I really like to see vibrant commerce right here. I find it very difficult, regardless of bicycles, just to cross Broadway. To get from point A to point B, I feel like I'm taking my life in my hands, especially as you get closer to the government clinic up there. Traffic's going really fast, and you have to really decide, is it worth it, or should I drive around the block and park on the other side of the street? Because I don't want to make that. I don't want to cross the street. So anything that's going to make it safer for pedestrians, it's going to slow people down, it's going to bring businesses into town, not just a few fast food joints that are in the city right now. I think it's good for Kingston, and I think we have to look at the future and not just what we're going to lose from the past.
Thank you for coming out. I want to also make it clear, this is the first time this committee is seeing this updated version of this. So we have a lot of discussing to do, including the fire department. We can get with the chief. So there's a lot still to be debated amongst us. But we appreciate all your input, and obviously stay in touch with us. We'll echo your concerns and work together jointly. Something to wrap up. All right.